शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णा प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णा चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासदि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेषु विघ्नेश्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदयादिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खलः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया मनश्च भद्रं भजतादधोक्षजे आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहेतुकी। We're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 3, verse number 31. So this is Sage Prabuddha continuing to reply to the question of King Nimi, where he has asked that how can one cross over the Maya of Bhagavan. So he has described the process, how you accept Guru, follow Bhakti, practice the various limbs of Bhakti. And now he, in this particular verse, is describing the outcome of that and how one actually becomes free from that Maya. So it says, Smarantaha smarayantascha mitho ghau agharam haram harim bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya bibhrati utpulkam tanu. So he says that Hari, who is Agog Haram, which takes away the spate of sins. Even if there is storm of sins, he purifies that. So remembering him and reminding others, then this bhakti leads to bhakti, which gives rise to symptoms such as standing of the hair on the end, bibhrati utpalakam tanum. So bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. So there is a bhakti which leads to another bhakti. So this is the meaning of how sadhana bhakti leads to bhava bhakti. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vida. So first bhaktya is sadhana bhakti. Means through sadhana bhakti, then you get bhava bhakti, and then bhava bhakti has the anubhavas or sattvic bhavas described here as bibharati utpalkam tanam. So the devotees, they remember him because when one becomes situated on the bhava, bhava is the vikaro manasa bhava. So bhava is the transformation of the mind. So therefore this bhakti becomes manifest in the mind, because now various types of bhavas, thoughts, ideas, desires, they manifest in our mind. So that mind becomes purified, and then in the purified mind you can think, you can remember Krishna. Smaranta. When mind is not impure, then it is not possible, because mind keeps on fluctuating, flitting, running up, down, here, there. As Arjuna says, Chanchalam Himana Krishna. So now the mind becomes stabilized. And this is the effect of that. So Sri Vishnath Chakravarti says, Evam sadhan bhaktya sadhya bhakti prapti maha smaranta. So he says that in this way, how by executing sadhana bhakti one attains sadhya bhakti, which is the bhava bhakti, that is being described here. So this is also pointing out to the fact that bhakti is not an outcome of any material action. Bhakti manifests by bhakti. So the activities of sadhana bhakti therefore are also called bhakti. That's why Rupa Goswami says that uttama bhakti is of three types: sadhana, bhava, prema iti cha. So although the activities of bhakti which are performed with one's body or senses, they look like any other material action, but they are not material. Otherwise bhakti will also become a result of material actions. So although we chant the name and speaking with the tongue is also material, so how can that lead to bhakti? So therefore Rupa Goswami says, Ata Sri Krishnamadi na bhaved grahyam indriyai sevanunmukho jivhado swayameva spuratyada. So when we become seva unmukha, when we become inclined to do service to Bhagavan, then bhakti manifests in our senses. Therefore it is not considered as a material action. And then outcome of that leads to bhav. So that's what is being described here. So therefore it says, Evam sadhan bhaktya sadhya bhakti prapti maha smaranta. Bhaktya sadhan bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya prem bhaktya. So there are twice bhakti is used, bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, and both times it is used in the third case, So the first bhakti is referring to sadhan bhakti, and the second he says is referring to prema bhakti, sadhya bhakti. So first is the cause, second is the effect. But this cause and effect is not in the popular sense of cause and effect. Therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami says, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Hridi Sadhyata. That this sadhyata or achievement by action is not in the sense that you are creating, but it is already there and it becomes manifest. So when we perform any action, action has got 4 results. That you utpadya, sanskarya, vikarya, prapya, and if you add the 5th one, tyajya. So whatever we do, either we are creating something new, we are modifying something, we are attaining something which is already there, prapya, or we are giving up, or we are adding value to something. So these are the only outcomes of an action. So when we say cause and effect, then the cause can lead to any of these things. The effect could be utpadya, it is created, samskarya, you add value to it, vikarya, you modify it, you prapya, you just go there, you go from one place to another place. The place is already there, you are not creating that, you just reach there. And when you are reaching, you are also giving up something. So therefore this bhakti is prapya, that nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam, it becomes manifest. So it is not sadhya in the sense that we create something. So that's being described here. Then once one has attained prema, then it describes the mindset of such a devotee. क्वचिद् रुदन्ति अच्युत चिन्तया क्वचिद् हसन्ति नन्दन्ति वदन्ति अलौकिकाः नित्यन्ति गायन्ति अनुशीलयन्ति अजं भवन्ति तूष्णीं परमेत्य निर्वृताः. So he says that क्वचिद् रुदन्ति अच्युत चिन्तया. So now his mind is set, he is no more having any material desires. So he says, thinking about Krishna, sometimes he cries, and kvachid hasanti, sometimes he laughs, and nandanti, sometimes he feels happy, and vadanti alaukika, sometimes he speaks, and all these activities are alaukika, they are not material. And nityanti gayanti anusiliyanti ajam. Sometimes he dances, sometimes he sings, sometimes he is doing some activities for Krishna, sometimes he is silent, and in this way he is experiencing nirvritti. So this nirvritti is different from nivritti, means he is in a happy state of mind. So these are the activities of a person who has attained prema. So in his Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti is giving some explanation why he cries, why he laughs, what is happening in his mind. Because if he is having different behavior, then there must be some different experience or different state of the mind. So he says, Adyapi Krishno na praptas tarhi kim karomi kva gacchami kam prichhami ko mam tam prapyediti evam chintaya rudanti. So he thinks like, oh, even now I have not attained Krishna, and what can I do? Where can I go? Whom can I ask? Who will lead me to Krishna? So in thinking like this, he cries. So this is the reason of his crying. Means he is feeling separation and he thinks, where can I find him? And like a child who feels separated from the mother and cries for mother, like that, cries. And Kochid Hasanti, sometimes he laughs. Why? Because he is seeing some pastime. Gopavadhu charyartham tamasyam ratrau kasyachit gopasya prangane konastha tarutale ninhyutya sthitam kosi tvamre kosi. So Krishna is going into some cowherd man's house to steal the wife from there. He is a thief, so he also steals wives. But when he goes there, he is standing, hiding in the courtyard under the tree, in the shade, so that he cannot be seen. He is dark in color and dark, you cannot see. But somebody, the lady in the house, mother-in-law, senses that somebody is moving. So she shouts, Kosi, Kosi. You see this town Kosi? When you go to Delhi, Kosi, Kosi. This is the Kosi. So Kosi means Ko-asi. By Sunday it becomes Kosi. So who are you? Who are you? She asks. Hey, who are you? Tasya Gurujan Vacha Palaitum Pravittam Krishnam Spurtim Praptam Alakshya. So then Krishna is, when he hears this, some elderly lady shouting, then he starts running away from there. So the devotee is seeing this in his spurti, and then he starts laughing. So that's why he laughs. Nandanti tadaprokshanubhavena anandam prapnuvanti. Then he feels happy sometimes because he experiences the presence of Krishna in his mind. And then Ha Prabho etavadbhir dinais tvamaham prapto asmi ti vadanti. And then he speaks, Oh my Lord, I have found you after so many days. Alaukika lokatita ajam Krishna manusiliyanti. So in this way he speaks some extraordinary statements. And then ajam Sri Krishna manusiliyanti sviya srotra adi indriya vishay kuruvanti. And then he is engaging his senses in Sri Krishna by hearing about him, by speaking. That is the anusilam. Evam param parameshwaram etya prapya nirvrita santatushnim bhavanti. So in this way, having attained Supreme Sri Krishna, he becomes very happy and he becomes silent. So that is the reply which he gave. Iti Bhāgavatān dharmān shikshan bhaktya taduthaya Narayana paro mayam anjastarati dustaram. So the sage Prabuddha, he concludes his reply to the king. He says, in this way, learning the Bhagavad Dharma and then attaining bhakti by the practice of those devotional activities, a person easily transcends the formidable Maya, being devoted to Narayana. Narayana paro mayam anjas tarti dustaram. So this is the reply to the question how to transcend Maya of Bhagavan. So iti dharman shikshaniti स्मारयन्तश्च इत्येतदन्तानां धर्माणाम् अनुष्ठानस्य शिक्षणं तदुत्तरेषां पुलकिततनुत्वरोदनादीनां त्वभिलाषस्य शिक्षणं. So he says that in this way, learning the Bhagavad Dharmas, that is up to the verse Smaranta Smarayanta. So up to there it is all learning etadantanam dharmanam, and he is practicing anushthanasya shikshanam, how to practice them, he learns that. And then after that where it says bibhrati utpalkam tanum and rudanti etc. pulkit tanutva rodanadinam to abhilasasya shikshanam. There he has to learn, because that is not something you can just learn. These things, you are not going to learn how to cry. Some also practice that. Crying also is practiced. So he says that is not practice, that is you have the abhilasha. So he says tu abhilasasya shikshanam, that you have to have such desire to attain prema bhakti. Means kadaham pulkit tanur bhaveyam iti etat prakarkam. When will I also have such symptoms on my body, means I will experience bhakti like that. Taduthaya sikshit bhakti janitaya bhaktya uttalakshanaya prem bhaktya. And then from this bhakti one attains prem bhakti. Mayam tarati iti anusangikam phalam. So one becomes free from Maya when one has attained prema bhakti. So then one is beyond the Maya. That is the reply. सृष्टि जी, क्या पूछना आपका?
प्रणाम बाबाजी. Babaji, the purification of the mind, you said, is a sufficient condition. Once the mind becomes purified, then in that mind the devotee can experience the divine leelas of Shri Krishna. So the question that came to my mind is whether it is the realization of, not realization, the becoming of pure awareness, or the becoming of Brahman, or merging into Brahman. In both these experiences of Bhagavan, once we reach it, I don't know, I can only speak theoretically, how do I know? So once we purify our mind, then the most we can reach is the stage of ahankar, where drashta bhav still exists, where there is no dissolution of ahankar yet. And in that stage, we cannot become pure awareness, or we cannot merge into Brahman. So even when we experience Bhagavan as Brahman or as pure awareness, then we need to remove ahankar, or someone has to grace us to remove that ahankar. So how is it that for devotion, which is, as Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam delineates us as a delicacy, a fruit, and the highest the rasas be attainable through merely a purified mind situated in sattva. Like I've heard of Arjun being granted divine drishti. So is it through the material mind that one experiences, a material purified mind that one experiences God, or is it something else?
So whatever experience one has, as long as you are in this body, you have experience through these bodies, mind, senses only, not through something else. But this is the whole idea, that they are purified, means if you are following the path of bhakti, then bhakti descends into them. So avirbhuya manovrittai vrajanti tat swarupatam. So bhakti becomes manifest in them, just like if you take a piece of iron and you put it in fire. So the fire enters into the iron piece. And now this iron piece also acts like fire. Although it is not fire, it is still iron only. But it is not like the cold iron, which will not burn, this will burn. So therefore the senses, mind, etc. of a purified devotee, they become imbued with the potency of bhakti. And then with those purified senses he can have the vision. So this is of course the state of prema, as the commentator Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti explained. And this is not same thing as Brahma Sakshatkar. In Brahma Sakshatkar you have to give up ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimucya nirmamo santo brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So to have experience of Brahman, you have to give up all this ahankar, bal, darp, kam, krodh, parigraha. Here it is separate. Here you engage in the devotional activity. And your identity is now as a devotee. There you have to identify with Brahman. These are two separate processes.
But is there any difference between pure awareness, which emerges from,
Yes, there is a difference.
The Anand aspect of God, where Chit comes from the Anand, Sat and Chit comes from the Anand aspect. So if that awareness comes from the Anand aspect, is it not non-different from God? So if someone experiences God as pure awareness and someone experiences Him as, of course, then there is no knower left to experience it. So if someone becomes pure awareness, or if someone even becomes Brahman,
so just
of course, it's not that he becomes God. He, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it is mentioned that we are all parchais of God.
So I give you a piece of gulab jamun. So you want to taste gulab jamun or you want to become gulab jamun? Which one you would like? So Brahman realized.
So even in the stage of prema.
Yeah, but that is true. That is true, but that still it is not that they become one. Janat nahi is one thing and becoming is another thing. So there it says Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That becomes Brahma. Becomes means identifies with that. You don't have your separate identity. Here your identity is not lost. You become so much entwined in love that you feel one in heart, but still you have your experience. So you don't become Bhagavan here. This is Ahingra Upasana if you become like that. So we have to know this. Otherwise we'll think it is same as Brahma Sakshatkar, then you're... No, it is not. That is the whole idea. You taste gulab jamun and you become so much absorbed in tasting it that you forget yourself. So that is because of too much taste. But you have, even when you forget, you still have your identity. There your merge means now you never come back from that. Because to go to that state you have to give up ahankaram, vilam, darpam, kamam, krodham, parigraham, vimuchya. Visheshena muchya, completely giving up. So that's why in Advaitavad they say that there is no kartritva, bhoktritva, gyatritva in the Atma. And we say that Atma has got kartritva, bhoktritva, gyatritva. So this is a very fundamental difference. They don't accept it. So therefore in their experience there is no kartritva, there is no bhoktritva. So where is the question of bhokta and bhogya and all that? They don't even believe in it. But we say that this remains because this is the characteristic of the very Atma. It cannot be taken away. So even when Krishna says that prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankar vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. So he says all the actions are happening in the prakriti, the gunas of prakriti, but the person thinks I am doing. So it is true that actions are happening only in the body, it is our experience, they are not in Atma. But he says manyate. So manyate means thinks. So that means the ability to think is there. If Atma does not have sense of I, it cannot identify. If somebody goes on the stage and plays a role of someone, that person has his own identity. And then he plays the role of someone else. Suppose he doesn't have his own identity, how will he play another person's role? He cannot. So this is a very important difference. We have to understand it, otherwise people get confused and they think this Gyan Bhakti sab ek hai.
I have one more thing to ask, if I may, if that's all right.
Yes, go ahead.
So when we are under the influence of Mahamaya, then we have then we are entirely governed by Mahamaya. We might believe that we are doing it, but as you said, it's all happening on its own, and everyone is being driven by swabhavas. And once someone surrenders or comes under the influence of Yoga Maya by grace of Guru, then he is entirely governed by Guru and Yoga Maya, and again his actions are beyond his control. So where in between these two states does identity or I exist? Where does I exist?
So that there is an I in the Atma. Anything which is conscious has a sense of I. That is the very meaning of being conscious. Just try to think practically. When you say I am conscious being, what does it mean? It means I can feel, I can know. That's what it means. So therefore there has to be an I. There is no sense of something just being conscious. has no meaning. So consciousness always assumes sense of I. So whether it is Jiva or Bhagwan or Paramatma, the sense of I is there. The problem is that we have this body, and then body is made of matter, and that matter has got one element called ahankara. And that ahankara also has the characteristic of I. But that characteristic of I has no meaning unless the Atma identifies with it. So it's just like you have a robot. And now robot can speak like a human robots are there, so they can speak just like human beings, they can talk to you. So they will also say I this. So that means they have a sense of I, but it is programmed. If you remove the electricity, then there is no I. You cannot search inside where is the I. You won't find anything. So body is like that. But the difference is that which is making it function, that has its own sense of I. So Atma has its own sense of I, and body has its own sense of I, but that I is only material, which means that material I cannot function without the consciousness being infused into it by the Atma. Atma's I will never be lost, it is independent. Body's I depends on the I of the Atma. So Maya, which we call as that we are under the influence of Maya, is this only. That Maya has made us now identify with this I of the body, and then we think I am this body. That is the only influence of Maya. And once you do that, then you are like a robot. You work just like a robot is functioning on some program. So you function on some program. But still there is a difference. Just like now robot, if you put artificial intelligence in the robot, then robot also becomes educated with time and experience. So we can learn. We can acquire this knowledge of distinction. And that's where the difference arises. Once we understand this, then we can take control of the actions and we can get out of it. So if we do not have the knowledge, then we are just like a machine, 100%. But when we have knowledge and we practice control, then we are not just that we are completely 100% robot. It is not true. So same with Mahamaya and then with Yogamaya, then you are under the influence of Bhakti. But you are being driven with your own sense of I is there. Otherwise everybody will just work like a machine. Then there is no need of giving instruction to anybody. Instruction is having value only when you have a choice to do it or not do it. If you don't have a choice not to do it, it's not an instruction. Then you have to do it. Then there is no need of law. Why law is there? Because you have a choice to follow or not follow, and then you have a corresponding effect. If you follow, what is the effect if you don't follow? So that means some choice is there. So this we have to keep in mind. Even when Krishna is saying Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankar vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. So manyate part is there. So he can also say, I know I don't think like that. So that makes the difference. Let it happen, but I don't think I do it. So that means there is a choice. But choice comes only when there is knowledge. If knowledge is not there, there is no choice. So that's why Knowledge is important. That's why he said, Tatra Bhāgavatam dharman shikshayat guru atmadevata, that is, learn. So it's important to know this. Otherwise we are just making up whatever comes to our mind. So this subject will come also in the upcoming verses, they will explain this. It's a very important part, verse from 35 onwards. Okay, is it clear, Srishti?
I mean, I am Vimud Atma, so it can't be fully clear. But it followed a certain pattern of logic. However, another thing is coming to my mind. Can I ask?
Yeah.
So, first is it so problematic or is it such a bad thing to not have free will and allow God to do? I mean, it's his Leela. If he wants to destroy someone, he can destroy them. If he wants to rescue someone, he can rescue them. What is the problem? So even if we don't have any free will, then it's his world. What is if we are like robots of Mahamaya or robots of Prem and function?
No, then Prema is not possible without free will. You don't understand. There cannot be any Prem if there is no free will. What is Prem then? I mean, if the robots are there and I program them to act in such a way, that's not Prem. Prem is...
But then we do have, I think at the outset of not this class, but in the beginning it was made clear that Prem is not something that we own or it's not our birthright. It is by grace that we get it. So it's anyway not something that was ever there with us or was spontaneous or we had a choice to develop or nurture or a habit that we can cultivate, but something that we got by Radharani's grace.
Yeah, but you cannot get just like that. You have to do sadhana, that is, choice is there. That's what is being described. You see, people take everything to just extreme. I think this is the human nature. But we have to understand that there is nothing like that 0 or 1, on or off. It is not like that. Karma is also not like that. Karma is not as you think, that if you steal, this will happen as it is described. There is also intention part. And why intention changes the karma? Intention obviously is not something robotic. That is depending on the person's own will. So although it is being described, that's why it becomes very difficult to understand it. Just even matter, to give you a material example, when you go to quantum mechanics, things are not as we think of Newtonian physics, like very organized and following very fixed rules. They are not like that. There is so much mixture there. So that is the more reality when you go at the subtle level. Same in the prema is also like that. Now just because now I say that prema is something which comes by grace, now it looks like I have no role to play in it. That is also not true. Or to think that I can get prema by my effort, it is produced. That is also not true. So both extremes are not true. So some things are stated to break your other understanding, but we have to see how, otherwise there is no point in saying that you should study, you should practice, then there is nothing to do, okay, just by grace. But then grace...
But isn't us thinking that we are doing it the biggest illusion?
Yeah, Baba, try to understand it. Yes, you have to do it and at the same time not have the ahankar of doing it. This is the trick. He is telling Arjuna fight, but at the same time he is saying that no, that nimitta matram bhav savyasachi. So either we think I don't have to fight, because God is doing everything, so I have nothing to do. Or I am the doer. But he's saying, no, you do as if you are in control, but know that you are not in control. This is the paradox. That's why I'm saying that this philosophy is not this way or that way. It's not one or two. It's not black and white. So we have to break this thinking. And if you are a quantum mechanics student, your thinking is broken like that. Otherwise you will not understand quantum mechanics at all. If you remain fixed in these ideas that, force mass is equal to F is equal to ma, but not necessarily. It works at certain level, but at certain level it doesn't work. So therefore you find all types of statements, as you are quoting that in love also they do not know. There are statements like that also. But that is also not that they are always at that level. Some state comes, but it is not permanent state. Even Radha and Krishna, they are not in that state all the time, because they are also functioning. Krishna also goes to tend cows. Then he has to think, he has to know that I am cowherd boy, there are cows. It's not that he is in that state of that. There is no difference between him and Radha, and who is lover and who is beloved, and nothing. That is some experience at one state that is being described. That's not all the time.
Okay, so forgive my strong-headedness, but isn't it cheating if I still think that I am the doer but expect grace of God to work through me?
Why is it cheating?
Because I still have this bhavana that I am actually doing it, but I'm just telling others that it's him, or like somehow trying to live in that paradox where I have my foot like between, like there's a line and I have my foot on both ways.
That's why Jiva Goswami gave the name of philosophy Achintya Bheda Bhed. Why he called it Achintya Bheda Bhed and not Abheda, not Bheda? This is very paradoxical. The philosophy has a paradoxical name, and he has rightly added Achintya to it. So try to understand that there is some reasoning behind it. Otherwise you should have called it Advaitavad like Sankaracharya. So why he says Bheda na Bheda? This is what you are saying, your foot in two sides. So there is a Bheda part, there is a Bheda part. So we are one with Bhagavan, we are also, there are statements like that. And then there are statements of difference. So we have to have the holistic approach. You cannot take only one type of statements and then reject the others. So that's why it takes some thinking and patience to understand it. This is the whole idea, Tatra Bhāgavatam Dharman Shikshayat Guru Atmadayavata.
And I have one final question on the I-ness of Atma. If Atma is pure awareness, and that pure awareness, like you just spoke about Achintya Bheda Bhed, and how in terms of pure awareness we are similar to Bhagavan. So if someone experiences that pure awareness, is it not devoid of the characteristic of I, not experiences, sorry, if someone becomes pure awareness, then wouldn't that be devoid of the characteristic of I? And isn't that I ahankar?
So you're talking about Brahm Sakshatkar?
Yes, you just, a while back you mentioned how
so
the I-ness in Atma exists.
So therefore at that time, just like when you go in deep sleep, so when you are in deep sleep, do you know your I? You don't know. But are you dead? Your awareness, pure awareness is there. So the Brahm Sakshatkar is something like that. It's not that I is lost, but I without predicate doesn't have any meaning. This is what is called Nirvikalpaka. That's why they have even Samadhi, two types. Savikalpak Samadhi and Nirvikalpak Samadhi. So Nirvikalpak Samadhi means Nirvashya. There is no Kalpaka there, means there is no variety of knower or known. But that does not mean that I is lost. I is there. But it is described like that he has become one with it. Or he is Brahman, I am Brahmasmi. Because there is no other way to describe it. And they have done sadhana to think like that. So they achieve that. But that does not change the reality. So that is what pure awareness is. Because the sense of I has meaning only when you is there. If there is no you, then I doesn't mean anything. What does I mean? I means that I am separate from everything else. But if there is nothing else, then there is no I also. So although I exists, but it cannot be expressed. That's why it is called anirvachaniya. I can be expressed only in relationship with something else. If there is no something else, then I cannot be expressed. That is the Brahma Sakshatkar. Tatra Veda Aveda Bhavanti. Veda becomes Aveda. Kena Kampashyet. To see whom by whom. That is the description. So think of your deep sleep state. So that also people want. Sandeep.
Thank you, Babaji.
Pranam Babaji Maharaj. So I am a little confused on the linkage of these verses from 22, 11.3.22. So 11.3.22 talked about Sikshet Guru Atmadevta. So it's for an individual bhakta or sadhaka that he has to learn, and then subsequently all the qualities were given in the subsequent verses. That was again for an individual sadhaka. But then in 31, he is using mitho. So is it for a congregation or is it for an individual sadhaka? Because from 22 he is talking about an individual sadhaka.
Yeah, but do you think that individual, do you think that when he is learning, he is the only one learning from his teacher, there are no other people learning?
No, but then why at that point he is saying that that there has to be an exchange between other people?
So what is the problem?
I'm getting little this thing because first he is talking about individual.
Baba, if I have to tell you that you want to learn music and I tell you go to the teacher and you learn and you do this and you do that, and then I say now when you come on the stage you play with others like this. So then you say, why are you saying like this? First you said only about me, and now suddenly you are saying that I have to play with the tabla guy and the flute guy and this. That's your logic. So means you should be the only one, you should be the only student and there should be no other students. That's what you are saying.
No, I'm not saying putting that logic. My point was that even just for 31, if we keep 31 aside, then 32 to 33 is again describing about individual state.
So what is the problem with that? Okay, remove this if that is troubling you. Just cut that verse out. Because I don't understand why that is troublesome to you. But if it is troublesome, leave it.
No, not troublesome. I couldn't get the link suddenly from.
Link, I'm telling you that is, there are many students of a teacher and he's talking about that. You will never see that one teacher has only one student, maybe very rare. But every teacher will have some students.
Yeah. Only like my friend. Just had withdrawn. Anyway, the second question was about 32, 33. That these states, because in 31 he already said Bhaktya Sanjayata Bhaktya, which is again from Sadhana to Prema Bhakti, and 32, 33 again giving that some Lakshana of those Prema state. But my doubt on this 32, 33, like not doubt, the question is, we did Bhakti Sandarbha and Priti Sandarbha, but there in any of these bhavas, this type of state is not said. So is this prema, or I am a little confused, Satna, Bhav, Prem, what it is, 32, 33?
That means you didn't study Priti Sandarbha properly. I mean, Priti Sandarbha is describing all Anubhavas, Sanchari Bhavas, all types of things are described. 8 Sattvic Bhavas are described there. And these are the verses which are cited there.
This is prema, like that madness in prema.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. That's why he's saying that in Prema Bhakta he behaves like that.
Yeah, I'll just go through again because I was just thinking like if Priti Sandarbha is not. Maybe he's quoted, and I'll see again. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? So we'll stop here. Late reaction.
I want to ask about this Bhaktya Sanjayate Bhaktya.
Sanjatya, not Sanjayate.
Sanjatya Bhaktya. Yes, Sanjataya Bhaktya.
Sanjatya, not Sanjatya.
Sanjatya Bhaktya. So does this mean, now I understood that sadhana bhakti leads to bhava bhakti. So that's bhakti coming from that bhakti. I also understood that one receives bhakti from a person who has bhakti. So does that mean that the understanding of sadhana bhakti has to come from someone who is Parabrahma, who is Steve, who has the realization of Brahman, or one can acquire the process of sadhana bhakti independent of a guru who has not the realization of Brahman?
You can just read, you can also read book and acquire knowledge. Book.
And that also counts the knowledge one gets about sadhana bhakti.
That's what I'm saying. You can buy Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu book in Sanskrit with Hindi translation, English translation, and you can read it. You'll get knowledge.
And that bhakti, and if one starts to practice sadhana bhakti based on that, that will also lead to bhava bhakti, or one must receive.
The thing is that you just ask question without even thinking. So if you read that and now you say you practice by reading this book, what will you practice? What is the first thing stated? in the book?
And the first thing stated in that book is
Guru Padashraya Tasmat Krishna,
yeah,
right? Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam.
yeah.
So how will you do that if you don't take Guru just by reading the book? How will you do it? You have to come to that.
Yeah.
Here also we said it. Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Surayottama. So even if you read the book yourself, still book itself is telling you, and then you are saying you will still reach that. Reach what?
Yeah, okay.
In verses 31 and 32, Bahuvachana is used, and I was wondering whether it could be also interpreted as to show that bhakti, the universality of bhakti, that it's not only one person who can attain this state, but it's accessible to many, to everyone.
Yeah, but even when he is using one, doesn't mean it is one. Even when he says Sikshet Guru Atma Devta and there is a singular, it does not mean one. It is, you use one. If I say cow gives milk, so then you say, well, it is talking about one cow. So only one cow gives milk or cows give milk? So therefore when he is saying one, this is the problem Sandeep is having. He says this, all these verses are talking about one. It's when you have to describe thing that you should get up in the morning. So you say, well, he is talking about only one person. So only one person can get up and rest can sleep. Is that what I mean? So when singular is used, it doesn't mean that he is talking about only about one person. It's describing the process. If I say man is mortal, is one man who is mortal. So it is in jati. Ekvachan is used to describe the class. Okay.